Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for part two of our taxpayer education series. Today's program is going to be focused on the American Rescue Plan and the expansion of the child tax credit. Once again, my name is Zahra, and I'm the staff attorney working in the Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic with the Erie County Bar Association Volunteer Lawyers Project. So I'm just going to give a brief overview, very brief overview of the American Rescue Plan Act. So the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 is the $1.9 trillion economic stimulus package that was passed by Congress, and it was signed into law by President Biden on March 17th, 2021. For disclosure, I'm going to be referring to it as the ARP going forward, just because it's a little bit easier to refer to it. So the ARP aims to speed up the economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, and it aims to achieve this through various measures, which include financial support to struggling Americans. So this is a brief snapshot of what we aim to talk about today. So first on the list is the final stimulus check, which was part of the American Rescue Plan. I will be very honest and say that this is going to be very brief because we did discuss it in our first program. So I don't have too much really to add to that. The second portion is going to probably be the highlight of our discussion today, and we're going to be talking about the child tax credit and how the American Rescue Plan has expanded the child tax credit. We're also going to discuss the expansion of the earned income tax credit because that also has a lot of significance for many families. And then finally, I just want to highlight some of the issues and concerns that we have that have been raised to us, over the past year and a half, I would say at this point. And really that just relates to family dynamics and how changing family structures have made it in some cases more difficult for individuals who qualify or who are carrying a lot of the expenses for the household. Sometimes the tax law doesn't account for that. So really the aim of that portion is just to address what the requirements are to claim children and how the changing family structures has made that a little bit difficult, or I should say the tax laws have been slow to adapt to changing family structures. And so we've seen a lot of issues come to light there. And then the final portion is going to be reserved for questions, but please don't hesitate to stop me throughout the presentation if you do have any questions or concerns. So just again, a very brief overview of the third stimulus check, which was authorized by the American Rescue Plan. This stimulus check authorized the payment of $1,400 per adult and $1,400 per dependent. One of the significant changes is that now all dependents qualify regardless of age. And this payment is an advance payment based on your 2020 tax return. So if if your situation changes in 2020, such that your income changes, or if you have an additional dependent, and you believe that you're entitled to an additional amount, you can claim that on your 2021 tax return, because really the IRS has been making those payments based on the information that they have. And the most recent information that they have is on the 2020 tax return. So to be eligible for the stimulus check, you must be a US citizen or US resident. You must have a social security number valid for employment, and you cannot be claimed as a dependent by somebody else. Okay. So the child tax credit. Before I actually get into the expansion of the child tax credit, I do want to give a brief overview of what the child tax credit is, and to give a picture of what it is before the American Rescue Plan, because again, as of right now, it is just a temporary expansion. So I just want to kind of give an idea of where we're starting, and then if the expansion is not extended, this is probably where we'll be at by 2022. So the child tax credit is a credit for individuals who can claim an eligible child as a dependent. The age is usually, the age requirement states that the claimed child must be younger than 17 years of age. So if the child turns 17 by December 31st of the tax year, they are typically not eligible for the child tax credit. The relationship test just means that you have to be related to the child they must be your child, your grandchild, stepchild, foster child, or your sibling or any descendant thereof. The joint return test just means that the child cannot file a joint return. The support test means that the child cannot provide more than half of their own support. The child tax credit is in addition to the credit for child independent care expenses, and it is also in addition to the earned income tax credit. I mention this because some people believe, are under the impression that they are mutually exclusive, but that is not actually the case. Typically, the maximum amount that you can claim for the credit per child is $2,000. And again, typically it is only refundable up to $1,400. Again, I'm going to discuss how the American Rescue Plan changed that, but this is our baseline. And then finally, you usually have to have earned income in the amount of $2,500 to claim this credit. So how has the American Rescue Plan changed this? For 2021 only, the American Rescue Plan has made some significant changes, and these changes really relate to the eligibility age. So now instead of children being, the requirement that children must be 17 years of age or younger, that has now been increased to the age of 18. So if a child does not attain the age of 18 by December 31st, 2021, then they would be eligible for the child tax credit. The amount of the credit has been increased, so increased from $2,000 to $3,000. And if the child is below the age of 6, that amount has actually increased to $3,600. The child tax credit is also fully refundable now, as opposed to prior years where it was only refundable up to $1,400. And there is no minimum income requirement. So the requirement that I just mentioned, that you have earned income in the amount of $2,500, does not apply for 2021 only. Again, there is discussions that this might be extended, but for right now, as far as we know, it's only for 2021. We will keep you posted, and if that changes, we'll post some information to our website and maybe have another education session or presentation. I do also want to just briefly draw your attention to the distinction between refundable credits versus non-refundable credits, just in case someone is confused or doesn't quite understand what the difference is. So a non-refundable credit means that you can take the value of the credit up until, up to your tax liability. So for example, if you have if you're eligible for a non-refundable credit in the amount of $600, but your tax liability is only $500, that non-refundable credit will reduce your tax liability to zero, which is great. However, you wouldn't receive that additional $100 as a refund. It would just, you break even ultimately. Versus a refundable credit means that you can take the full value of the credit, even if it exceeds your tax liability. So using the same example, if you have a refundable credit in the amount, with a value of $600, just to use the same numbers for simplicity's sake, and you have a tax liability of $500, your tax liability would be reduced to zero, and you would also get that additional $100 back. We've talked about the child tax credit, and the earned income tax credit is fully refundable as well. So this becomes very significant, and it really does help struggling families, with their expenses. I mean, it does come typically once a year, but it is a significant help, I think, to struggling families. So this is probably the area where we get the most questions about the expansion of the child tax credit. And that is because the IRS has indicated that they are going to begin issuing advance payments of the child tax credit beginning on July 15th, 2021. These payments are, they're going to be based on the 2020 tax return. So if you file the 2020 tax return, you are good to go. If you haven't filed a tax return, I highly encourage you to file, and I would say to electronically file, just so that it will be processed much quicker. If you have direct deposit, highly encourage you to provide that information as well, just to ensure that you're going to be getting these payments as quickly as possible. The IRS has also indicated that there will be a portal for eligible individuals to update their information. So if your income has changed, if your filing status has changed, and if you have additional qualifying children, the IRS should have a portal up by July 15th, but we haven't received specific instructions just yet. Again, once we receive that information, we will be sure to post it to our website and hopefully our social media pages as well. If this applies to you, if you prefer to not receive the advance payments and would rather just receive a lump sum payment when you file your 2021 tax return, you will also have the option to do that. So I hinted at the earned income tax credit previously. The earned income tax credit is a refundable credit, which is available to low-income working taxpayers between the ages of 25 and 64. The amount of the credit depends on one's earned income and the size of their family. The earned income tax credit is one of the biggest redistribution credits available. Unfortunately, a large percentage of the population are unaware. So I believe that the statistic is that 25% of eligible individuals are unaware that they can actually claim this credit. And because you have to file a tax return to do it, a lot of them actually don't end up filing a tax return. But it is a huge resource and a huge help, again, to families who need it. Publication 5334, that is a flow chart that the IRS put together to determine whether you qualify for the earned income tax credit. I will say that is based on the requirements pre-American Rescue Plan. So if you do decide to take a look at it, just keep in mind that the age requirements have changed for 2021. But I will also be providing a more up-to-date resource that you can refer to. So the temporary expansion of the earned income tax credit, most significantly, the maximum amount of the credit for childless taxpayers has increased almost threefold. It is typically $540 for tax year 2021. That amount has been increased to $1,502. Also, there is an increase on the investment income cap. So typically, if you have investment income above $3,650, you would not qualify for the earned income tax credit. However, for tax year 2021, that number has increased to $10,000. So again, we are now encompassing a much larger percentage of the population. Finally, the age eligibility requirement has been expanded, and now it includes individuals aged 19 to 24, as well as individuals 65 or older. Again, much larger demographic is now eligible, with just one caveat. Actually, I want to mention that if you are in school more than half time and you have not attained 24 years of age, you unfortunately would not qualify. So that's just something to be aware of. And as I promised you guys, so there is a tool on the IRS website. It's an interactive tool where you enter your information, not your identification information, but just how many children you have, your age, and so on and so forth. And you can refer to the link on the screen if you wanted to give that a shot. And so finally, I want to talk a little bit about changing family dynamics and how this has affected, who gets the stimulus check and the amount for the child tax credit or the earned income tax credit. So over the past decade, family structures have changed significantly, and it seems that the tax law has been slow to adapt. Between the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit, there are 5 tests that must be met to claim a child for these purposes. That's age, residence, relationship, joint return, and support. Where we typically have seen issues is with the residence requirements. And honestly, over the past year and a half, I would say that we have, what's come to our attention is that there has been a little bit of an abuse of power. And I think that it's especially in domestic abuse situations, who can claim the children has become a very, very prominent point of contention. And I think that the biggest area where we see the confusion is with regards to residence. So the residence requirement says that in order to claim a child as a dependent, the child has to live with you at a U.S. address for more than half the tax year. So it has to be 6 months plus 1 day. What we have seen is a lot of, eligible individuals might not file a tax return, and then the other parent will claim the child and not, if it was with regards to the stimulus payments, they won't give the parent who actually lives with the child, they wouldn't give them their portion. And that's really become a point of contention. I think that's been exacerbated now, or we anticipate that it'll be exacerbated because there's a lot more at stake. We have, higher child tax credits, arguably higher earned income tax credit. So that does lead to some issues. So just to go over again one more time, the base that we're starting at is, again, so you have to meet those 5 tests: age, residence, relationship, joint return, or support. If more than one individual is eligible to claim the child, the tiebreaker rules apply. So I believe it's, the parent takes preference. If both parents are eligible, then it's the parent with whom the child lived the longest. If they lived an equal amount of time, then it goes on to the parent with the highest adjusted gross income, and so on and so forth. Now, if there is a situation where, for whatever reason, especially if both parents are on good terms, which is great, we love to see that, and for whatever reason, if one parent claims the child, the amount of the credit would be larger, because again, the amount of the credit depends on how much income you receive. Typically, again, there is a requirement that you have for the child tax credit. You have earned income in the amount of $2,500. So when you consider all these factors, sometimes it is better if one parent claims a child versus another parent. And you could have that happen. What you would have to do is file a form 8332, authorizing the non-custodial parent to claim the child, and then that would then meet that residence requirement. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, there are many situations where somebody wrongfully claims a child, whether it be the other parent. Again, they might not meet the residence requirement, and they hold on to whether it be the stimulus check or the refund because of the child tax credit or the earned income tax credit. What options do you have? So we highly encourage people to electronically file their tax return. And again, the reason for that is because it is much quicker and faster. It'll be processed a lot quicker. If you have direct deposit, you'll get your payment a lot faster. However, if somebody else has claimed, you or has claimed your children, the social security number will be flagged and the electronic tax return will be rejected. So the way to avoid that issue would be to paper file your tax return and claim the child. In that situation, once you paper file, I would encourage you to also, prepare your supporting documentation, because you will more than likely be audited or receive some sort of notice from the IRS. Again, we have seen a significant amount of people run into this issue where they go to claim their child, whether it be for the stimulus check, using the portal, and it gets rejected, whether it's by filing a 2020 tax return and claiming the recovery rebate credit. And then again, now we are anticipating more issues, with the increased child tax credit and the increased earned income tax credit. So I digress, but point being is I think that you should begin the process of gathering your supporting documentation so that you have it ready if you do receive a notice from the IRS for a potential audit. It is slow to come, but I can almost guarantee that you will probably be audited. It's just there's many, I believe there's millions of unprocessed returns at this point. So it is a slow process. But I would advise you to gather those documents. I will also say, if you're filing a 2020, when you come to file your 2021 tax return, it is best to file early so that you can avoid the issue of your return being rejected. If you strongly believe and if you are eligible to claim your children, I highly encourage you to file as early as possible, because it would just save you a lot of time and a lot of struggling, I think, with getting, at least at that point, you're more likely to actually get the money before an audit. So depending on your situation, that might be the route that you want to take. Now, if the other person, if you believe that your child's identity has been compromised, you should also file an identity theft affidavit. So that might not apply to everybody, but I mention it just in case. Now, does anybody have any questions? Awesome. So if you do have any questions, or if something comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out. Our number is on the screen over here. You can also email me, and our address is also on the screen. So thank you again for joining me today, and I hope to see you in our next programs. Thank you so much.